What does it mean to lose someone to gun violence? Well, for Sherry Scott, it means never seeing her daughter Francesca again.
Frankie was the life of our family. You know how you had that one person, and she was that one person. She was that one.
Scott says everyone called her Frankie, from her neighborhood friends to her nieces and nephews. On August 3rd, 2019, Frankie Marks took her 7 kids to Rouge Park on Detroit's west side for a day of fun and barbecuing. A dispute broke out on the basketball courts. Then shortly after, Frankie and her kids heard gunshots.
Francesca was safe, but when they started shooting, she ran to her baby to get her baby. That's how she got shot.
By the time Scott learned her daughter had been shot, things weren't looking good. She drove to the hospital, but it was too late.
So when I got to her, she wasn't cold, and I just held her hand until her body stiffened up.
Frankie was 30 years old. Scott remembers trying to tell her grandkids that Frankie, their mom, was never coming back.
It was horrible. Watching these kids, seeing that they'll never see their mom, it was just horrible.
Scott wishes people took time to think before acting out in violence.
I don't understand why people go to the park and start shooting or even contemplate shooting anybody. How do you do that? I don't understand it. There are families up there. You go to the park to relax. You go there to enjoy your family, read a book or something.
Frankie was just one of 102 people to die of gun violence in 2019 in Detroit. And her family was just one of the many families in Detroit to lose someone to gun violence. 2 years later, Scott returns to Rouge Park. There's a rally all about ending the senseless violence that took her daughter.
The last time we did the parade, the Stop the Violence parade, was when Francesca was alive, and she was doggone near leading the parade. So it feels odd to be having this parade, and she's not involved in it while she's alive. Now, it's because she was killed by the very thing she was marching against.
Detroit Police Chief James White attended the rally. He says these shootings robbed so many families of great people like Frankie.
It robs all of us. It robs us of Francesca. It robs us of her opportunities to not just live, but we never know what she could have been. And it's just very tragic when you have situations like this that happen all too often in our city where we're losing people, and it's just very, very tragic.
For some Detroiters, that feeling of loss stays with them for a long time. Mia Reed lost her son Charles to gun violence back in 2011.
I can tell you that I was devastated. My daughters were devastated. My family was devastated. And I think the community that loved him was devastated. That will not bring him back.
Charles Reed was 24 when he and his cousin were shot and killed in Detroit. After a long time of grieving, Reeve decided she wanted to help other grieving parents. That's when she joined Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America.
Many of them can relate to the experience that I have had with gun violence.
Aside from being a good support group, Moms Demand Action works with organizations in various communities that are working to curb gun violence. Reed says she wants to support those that are already doing the work.
We have volunteers that work in Lansing and in Washington to help bring awareness to the gun violence safety bills that we need to pass in order for us to be safe. Moms Demand Action is all about safety.
One piece of legislation Moms Demand Action is currently fighting for is the red flag law.
The red flag law, knowing that somebody that has a gun and should not have it, that is going to flag the person that is selling it to them so that they can pause for a minute and do some background checking. So expanded background checking.
Reed says she's done a lot of research on gun violence since her son was murdered. She says communities can't fix the problem until they start at the root.
Oftentimes people don't focus on the root cause. Gun violence is just a symptom of the root cause, which is poverty. So when people feel desperate, when people don't have the most basic things that they need, oftentimes they will revert to crime.
Dejuan Kennedy is a Detroiter who understands the root causes of gun violence. He knows firsthand because when he was young, he shot and killed one of his friends and spent 14 years behind bars. Now that he understands the cycle of violence he was living in, Kennedy wants other people to learn from his mistakes.
Like, that's why it means something to me. That's why it's something to me. Because I know why I was doing stuff. You know what I mean? So I know why the next person may be doing stuff. And I know if I survive something, I have a responsibility as a survivor to make sure the next person is warned before they do what they do.
Kennedy works with Force Detroit, a local nonprofit that works to build a freer and economically just future for Black and brown Detroiters. Kennedy spends a lot of his time talking to people who were dealing with the same cycle of violence that he was in.
I know what I did. I know what was going through my mind. So I try to share some of the things that help me process things and use my best thinking in the future. So
Kennedy says doing this work keeps him on the right track.
Personally, it's been helpful for me and the people that I have relationships with that know how I was in the past. It gives them a perspective or a point of view that they can dialogue like I'm right here. So you can talk to me about why I've changed, why I'm not doing this.
He works alongside Alea Harvey Quinn, who is the executive director at Force Detroit. She says right now the team is looking to other cities for solutions to gun violence.
It's fascinating when you get people who have been exposed to violence, who have been shooters themselves, or community leaders, when you get them to be exposed to these programs that are in other cities, and they're publicly funded, they're supported, and then we realize the absolute lack of resources that we have in Detroit, the absolute lack of infrastructure.
Harvey Quinn says other cities are finding more success than Detroit because they invest in the organizations doing this work.
Why is it important that, these things are publicly funded?
When you prevent one person from continuing a high violence lifestyle, statistically you save 6 lives.
Detroit police expect the number of shootings to slow down as the weather gets cooler. Meanwhile, lots of people are working hard to end the violence that has taken so many Detroiters away from their loved ones.